Welcome to Glop.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Glop. I'm your host Derek. If you want to get notifications from this channel, just ring the bell down below. It'll put some brackets up and let you know all the upcoming videos that's coming. So let's take a look at the possible teachings of the flat earth. Alright, as we're looking at this image here, you're seeing a picture of the earth from outer space. But the thing is that we're seeing all these wonderful lights, you're seeing the curvature, and our eyes immediately think this picture has been taken from outside. But the truth of the matter is the picture is this. This goes to show you how Photoshop can manipulate and change your point of view of what we actually live on. And the question you have to ask yourself is that, do you believe what the Bible teaches? Or does it mess up your paradigm and you try to explain the religion of science into your views? Alright guys, if you're ready to go down the rabbit hole, here we go. Now the question is, does the Bible teach that the firmament is really something that is over us? Something that is this canopy, if you will, dome, as you've seen in other images in other people's channels. Is it literal? Is it a biblical teaching that the earth has a firmament and that the earth is flat? Well, just pulling up the word firmament, you have from Genesis, God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters to divide it from the waters from the waters. God made the firmament, divide the waters which were under the firmament and from the waters which were above the firmament. So again, we're seeing this word firmament, which I've highlighted in all these different verses that go all the way down. Even the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. This is actually on Wernher von Braun's burial, his actual tomb, his plaque at his burial spot. This says this. The other thing says, praise ye the Lord. God praise in his sanctuary, praise him in the firmament of his power. And the word firmament is mentioned above. It says, in the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures was as the color of trembling terrible crystal, stretched forth over their heads above, and under the firmament were their wings stretched straight, and one towards the other. From one had two, which covered on its side, and every one had two, which covered on that side their bodies. And there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads, when they stood and let down their wings. And above the firmament that was over their heads was a likeness of a throne, as the appearance of sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness of the appearance of a man above it. Now this is coming straight from the scriptures, guys. And I looked and beheld in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them as it were a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne. And then Daniel goes into and says, and they that be wise shall shine in the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many of righteousness as the stars forever and ever. So the word firmament is really what has become this hiccup. What is it? Is it just the atmosphere that's above us? Is it the stratosphere? Is it the ozone? Is it the Van Allen belt? What is the firmament? Is the firmament a solid object that is above us, that literally protects us? And is this a salvation issue? Well, to be honest with you, it's not a salvation issue, but it does clear up a lot of the deception when you really get into it. But I'm going to first show you that some Christian sites that have a contrary view of what the Bible actually teaches, and then we're going to look at how the Hebrew explains exactly what the firmament is. Now, this is creation.com, and don't get me wrong, they have a great movie that's come out that's dealing with the alien deception, but they were on Skywatch TV, and I you know, the guys from Skywatch TV, they put a lot of great information. They have great books. I'm actually reading one of the books right now that comes from Skywatch. It's called Forbidden Gates, and I just started it 2 days ago, and I'm already this much into it because it's great, full of great information. So why is it that it's hard for Christian sites to believe what our ancient ancestors did? There are many sites out here that are saying that, you know, the flat earth society is fake, that the Bible doesn't teach of a flat earth. It doesn't teach that there was a dome that covers the earth. And when you look at their reasoning, they base everything off of science and not scripture. And this is where, on this channel, I want you to understand, always allow the scripture to interpret the scripture. It will do it every time. And so right here it says, at least for 200 years or so, as many anti-Christians have resorted to scrubbing laws, acting consciously with their worldview, that the early and medieval Christian taught that the earth is flat. One of the most potential recent examples is probably the most powerful man in the world, the U.S. President Barack Obama. Hussein Obama said, let me tell you something. If some of these folks, since we're around when Columbus set sail laughter, they have been found members of the Flat Earth Society laughter, they would have not have believed that the world was round. Applause. We've heard these folks in the past. Since President Obama was supposedly dealing with gay marriage, dealing with these other things, he was essentially saying that people that are Christian, that believe in the flat earth, are idiots, are Neanderthals, are backwards thinking. Well, what's the Christian community do whenever they come up to this attack? Because with Columbus' view is when the ship went so far out, it looked as if it was going behind. Now, there's a thing in art as known as the horizon line, and that never changes. It's always straight across. Doesn't matter what angle, what way you want to do. The horizon line is always flat, always straight across. And then there's always the depiction past it. Now, this is Rob Skiba, and I'm only taking a small clip from his video because a lot of people take a lot of his stuff and reuse it constantly and give him no credit, and he should have credit. And I'll have a link down below where you can go and watch a lot of the videos that he's done. He's done a lot of stuff with the scientific method. So Rob Skiba is putting his faith out there saying, okay, the Bible teaches this doctrine. But I'm going to show you that not all Christians see this same point of view. But take a look at this. This is hard to argue evidence about the horizon line and the depiction that the sun goes down and how it comes up and how, well, buildings look to be cut off. Let's take a listen.
Plenty of footage out there you can find where there's no clouds involved. This is from a really good video online you guys need to check out called Flat Earth Proof Sunset Off Puckett. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce it. P-H-U-K-E-T. Really interesting, showing sunset. I believe this was actually somewhere off the equator. Again, you'd have to watch that video for yourself, but it clearly shows the sun changing in diameter as it goes away. So please take note not to ignore this evidence. Other videos you've seen where it looks like it's going in an arc like that and going off into the distance. Other videos where people have taken and used filters and whatnot and analyzed the sun moving and then done measurement of pixels across the screen, showing that it does in fact look like it gets a little bit smaller in some cases. In some cases it gets a lot smaller. In this case from 302 pixels to 290. And then of course there's this video right here, which apparently was shot in the desert where there's going to be a lot less moisture, and so whenever there's less moisture you're going to obviously have less refraction and magnification.
You don't get to pick the anomalies that seem to agree with your views and ignore the common observations that don't, and still call yourself an honest investigator. That is intellectually dishonest.
So thinking about all this and thinking about what I had just shown you regarding atmospheric lensing, magnification, refraction, all that with regard to cities and objects at a distance on the land, I got to thinking, I wonder how this would work with the sun and moon. So this is what I came up with. I've got my magnifying sheet frame, and I created a little stand to paste the sun on it and keep it the same height over the flat surface of a table. So the sun is always going to be parallel with the surface. And check this out. All right, here's the first test of a sun moving over a flat surface, and with no atmospheric magnification, it does what we might expect it would. It gets smaller as it goes away from us. All right, now let's see what happens when we add in our atmospheric magnification. Again, water and refraction. Water causes magnification and refraction, right? So let's bring the sun back. Oh, check this out. Refraction bends the light downward. It made the sun set on a...
Trust me, I get it. It messes up your whole paradigm of everything that you believe. All of a sudden, you're having to rethink everything. Not just a little bit, but everything. And then you realize how deceptive is it, how easy it is for us to be deceived. It's very interesting that Jesus says that even the very elect could be deceived, saying that the evil one, he is so skilled in deceiving that we're going to have people that's going to be fighting each other. And I see this all the time, even on my channel, that talks about this, because I went into this. I quit watching Rob Skiba. I walked away from his teachings. I walked away from everything dealing with a flat earth, but I was like, you know what? I asked Nikki, and she's like, well, I think so. She had no hesitation. She says, because she took stuff in minor religion and other cultures and said, other cultures talk about the earth being flat, and the Bible clearly depicts it. And I was like, but in Isaiah it says it's a circle. She says, yeah, it says it's a circle, but a circle circumference is a circle that's flat. And he describes that, and there's another word that he uses that's more of a sphere. And he doesn't describe the earth being a sphere, he describes it as being a circle. And in our minds, we're told that a circle is, we think it's 3D, but it's not. It's not a 3D image. It says that the earth is God's footstool. It's on pillars. It's unmovable. There are scriptures that I could keep showing you that you should just type up yourself. But I understand this messes up a lot of people's paradigm. And they want to say that this stuff was not taught, that the earth was a disc. Ancient Israel imagined the earth to be a flat disc. Isaiah 42:5. Resting on the foundation of pillars. Job 9:6. It is surrounded by the ocean, and it has that. It has four corners, at the edge, or the ends. And Jeremiah, the center of the nail. And so here they're saying that, here's people talking about the earth being flat, and them having a hard time. And then they try to go into the University of Hebrew. Imagine the word is flat and round, covered by the great dome of the firmament, which was upon and by the mountain pillars, above the firmament and under the earth, and the water divided by God's creation. And you have these lists of the stuff that they're quoting here, but then when they get down to it, they just say that this wasn't what early biblical teaching was. And you just go back to what the scripture says, and you see that the firmament is power, the lightness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures. Is the firmament of their wings straight. The firmament was over their heads. And it just shows this. And then, you have websites like this that speaks the contrary of that and says that the flat earth is a myth. It's not something that should be taken factual. And I know it's a hard thing to understand, but here's the thing. We're told by Zechariah Sitchin and about Mesopotamia and dealing with that culture that they believed that there was this planet Nibiru. We're told that there are these other planets out there and that they believe that the earth was round, but that is not the truth. It doesn't teach that. The prime example is the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, the Epic of Gilgamesh is where he is on his hero journey. He's trying to find the elixir of immortality. So here it says, in the search for immortality, Gilgamesh had heard that one man and his wife had achieved everlasting life. He also knew that they currently lived in the Isles of Delmun, the home of the playground of the gods. Damun lay at the point where the sun rose each day. Now understand, this is where the sun rises each day, and Gilgamesh undertook a difficult journey to the garden of Damun. To get there, he journeyed to the mouth of the cave, which ran under the earth from a place where the sun set. It was the west to the point where it rose in the east. Now, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I know you're going, wait a second, Derek, we're talking about the Bible here. We're not talking about Gilgamesh. You got to understand that if you believe the theory of Zechariah and Sitchin, then it is contrary to what the truth is about Mesopotamia. And the truth of what Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, teaches, a flat earth notion. And that if the Epic of Gilgamesh is telling us, and I've had this thing since I was in high school, I've had this for 20 plus years. And what always rose to me, and I even have my old notes right here, let me flip to it, which just was something that was mind-boggling. I was going through my old book here. Let me see. It was in chapter 4, I believe it was. Yeah, I even have, you know, Gilgamesh. Get that right. There it is. Gilgamesh to the edge of the earth. And I'm even asking, you know, in search of everlasting life. And when you get to this point, you're realizing that Gilgamesh is telling us that the earth is not a sphere, that the sun has a place in which it sets. The sun has a place in which it rises. And it's a constant thing. On a spinning heliocentric globe, the sun should not rise in the exact same pattern every single day. There should be a different. The stars should not be held in their same thing. They should be different. They should be, you know, either blurs, or you should have them moved in different directions every single night instead of them slowly moving across. We should see them constantly have an Orion's belt over here or over there, or you never would know. You couldn't look at the stars. Our ancient ancestors that were sailing the seas should not have been able to look at the North Star that always stays fixed, never moves. And sailors use that to navigate the oceans. Shouldn't be possible to use the stars to navigate the oceans. Shouldn't be possible, because if we're on a heliocentric spinning ball globe, then the stars should not be in the same setting. But yet the scriptures in Gilgamesh 2 back up the fact that the stars, they have some wandering stars, and then you have stars that do not wander. And so when you start to see that other ancient cultures were teaching of a flat earth, then why is it that in the last 200, 300, let's just go 500 years, that you have Egypt, Greek, Roman, Mesopotamian, Syrian, Israel, Egypt, the Israelites, the Hebrews, the Canaanites, the Memorites, even the Anakim and the Raphaim. These are the descendants. The Anakim, the Raphaim are the descendants from the Nephilim and the fallen angels, and their teaching and their cultures that the earth is not movable. And that's why I'm throwing in this thing with Gilgamesh, because it says it's not movable. And then you realize in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I pulled up the page from my book, where he goes, and let's just look at it, is why I traveled here in search of the, and I'm going to mispronounce this, I apologize, is a country boy accent that just is going to kill it and butcher it. But we're going to call it Unasfetim, my father, for men say he has entered the assembly of the gods. Now, I thought it was interesting that Gilgamesh refers to the assembly of the gods. And I was like, well, is there anywhere in the scriptures that again alludes to the assembly of the gods? And guys, it does. It goes to show you that this ancient people, our ancestors, were smarter and wiser than we are today. And why the church and so many Christians are terrified, I mean literally terrified about being flat earthers, that they cannot let go of the laws that NASA and everything told. Trust me, guys, I was screaming, kicking, and I cursed up and down. I'm not going to lie, I did. It tore my paradigm up. It took me back to my old man before I was saved, with a foul mouth and everything, saying that this bleep, 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 bleep is not real. And Nikki was like, honey, calm down, sweetheart. It's not a salvation issue. And then I was like, oh, it's not. But I had a hard time because, and which Nikki's father, when I talked to him about this, had issues with it too. And he still does. We might not see eye to eye on everything. We might be at each other's throats at the moment. But her father, I actually know someone that tried to get into NASA. I do. And, you know, knowing her father, who actually wanted to be an astronaut, who went into the Air Force for the sole purpose was to be an astronaut. And to be denied being an astronaut, which I believe is because her father, he's just not a very good liar. And I mean, that's a good thing if you really think about it. He's just not a good liar. And I think that, you know, I personally think that's why he was finally given his letter of, you know, a non-acceptance after going through everything he needed to go through to become an astronaut. Am I right or wrong, Nikki? Mm-hmm. That was his whole childhood dream, and to become an astronaut. And because he has a hard time lying, I think that's why he was rejected. I'm being honest. I might not like him on a lot of other things, but at least the man can't lie, you know. And let's get back to this thing about the congregation. Is there anything in the scriptures that says that there's a congregation of the gods? Okay. Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pause while I take a quick, so you can see us at Ashley T. So in the Epic Gilgamesh, and this has ties to dealing with the firmament, is to show that in our ancient cultures, even people that are like Zechariah Sitchin or the ufologists saying that there's 9 planets or more, and there's, you know, endless cosmos or universes and everything, goes to show that the book of Gilgamesh from Mesopotamia, from that area, sits there and tells you otherwise. Now, you know when you're doing the work of Yahweh is whenever, just now, the first 20 minutes of this video, I had to shut down everything and pray about it, and by the grace of Jesus, I was able to salvage the first 20 minutes of the video, and it let me know that there is a truth to this that is trying not to be seen by people, so they understand that what we're seeing has been talked about in the epics of Gilgamesh. Now, in the book that I have, I've had this for a long time, says, bitterly Gilgamesh wept for his friend Enkidu. He wandered over the wilderness as a hunter. He roamed over the plains in his bitterness. He cried, how can I rest? How can I be at peace? Despair is in my heart. With my brother is now. What shall I be when I am dead? Because I am afraid of death. I will go to the best. I can go find you Tosfitim upon they call the far away. For he entered the assembly of the gods. So Gilgamesh traveled unto the wilderness. He wandered over the grasslands, a long journey in search of Unisfatim, whom the gods took after the deluge. So it means this is where the gods went after the great deluge. In the garden of the sun, and to him alone of men they gave everlasting life. At night, when he came to the mountain pass, Gilgamesh prayed to the mountains. Pass long ago I saw lions. I was afraid. I lifted up my eyes to the moon. I prayed, and my prayer went up to the gods. So now, O moon, God's son Sin, protect me. So again, this shows you in the scriptures where Abraham is coming out of the land of Ur. They are moon worshippers. They worshipped the moon. And Abram at the time, is called out from that to serve the one true God, Yahweh. And as we're going through this, and this is what I have pulled up here, and it says, and why I've traveled here in search of thee, and I'm a country boy, so I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry. You, now, Shemet, my father, the men as we have entered the assembly of the gods, has found everlasting life. I have desired to question him concerning the living and the dead. The man scorpion opened his mouth and said, Speak to Gilgamesh. No man born or woman has done what you have asked. No mortal man has gone into the mountain, the length of the 12 leagues of darkness. It is there is no light, but the heart of the oppressed, with darkness. From the rising of the sun, the setting of the sun, there is no light. Gilgamesh said, Although I should go to sorrow and pain, with sight of the weeping, still I must go. Open the gate of the mountain. And the man scorpion said, Go, Gilgamesh, I permit you to pass through the mountain of Mashu, and through the high ranges. May your feet carry you safely home. The gate of the mountain is open. When Gilgamesh heard this, he did as the man scorpion had said. He followed the sun's road to the rising and through the mountain. Now I find it interesting it calls it a man scorpion. And also the depiction that it gives in the book of Gilgamesh is that this man scorpion at the gate is half man and half dragon. Their glory is terrified. Their state shakes death into men. Their shimmering halo sweeps the mountains. They guard the rising sun. Now that is the depiction, and he calls it a scorpion, a man scorpion. But in honesty, it says that they have half man, half dragon. When you see the depiction of what Lucifer is, he is serpentine, he is shiny, he brings fear. And it's interesting, this is where Gilgamesh goes. He's going to the edges of the earth. Now, as this passage goes, we're seeing that at the end of the 12 leagues, the sun streamed out. There was a garden of the gods. Now, he ends at the 6 leagues of darkness, which thick and were no light. He could not see ahead and nothing behind him. And when he had gone 7 leagues, the darkness was thick and there was no light. He could not see nothing ahead and nothing behind him. And when he gleaned the 8 leagues, Gilgamesh gave a great cry, for the darkness was thick and he could not see ahead, nothing behind him. And the nightlings he felt north wind on his face. But the darkness of the thick, there was no light. He could not see nothing ahead and nothing behind. The 10 leagues was near, and after 11 leagues, the dawn light appeared. And at the end of the 12 leagues, the sun streamed out. Now, he is getting to the point where he's getting ready to enter into this gardens. But when you see the leagues that he goes through, it depicts Antarctica. It depicts that he gets to this cold, icy desert. He goes through, he's able to go past the firmament, and he goes into this outer darkness because he's trying to get everlasting life, immortality. There was a garden of the gods. All around him stood brushes bearing gems. Seeing it, he went down at once, and there was fruit of the carnelian and the vine hanging from it, beautiful to look at. So he's seeing this garden. Now what I find very interesting is the fact that when you hear the depiction coming from General Byrd, he describes that if you go past certain parts of the ice wall, the ice at the edge of the earth, he talks about these warm pools of water and this type of utopia that's never been touched by, he said, man. But now man has touched it, but no woman has set foot down there. So he says no women is down there. And there's vegetation, and that there's these different gems, and there's different copper and diamonds, and all these resources that we will want to tap into. And I find it very interesting that he says this. Matter of fact, let me let you hear it from his own words. So this is Admiral Byrd. Take a listen how he describes what they see in Antarctica. And then you see about how science matches up with that today. Or does it match up to what Gilgamesh? And could there be more about our ancient text that tells us that the earth is not the way we see it is? Take a listen to this.
Because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. And, you know, as the world shrinks with an ever-increasing acceleration, far-flung places, once useless, like we thought the North Pole was, and no man's land, become very useful. The bottom of the world will be important, not only to us, but to our allies.
I was going to ask you, does it have military importance?
It has some, and as the world shrinks, it will continue to shrink with an ever-increasing acceleration, thus bringing these places closer. And in the future, I can see a time when it will be very, very important strategically.
Well, has the development of air power increased the strategic importance of places like the
very much
Palma
so.
Peninsula, we'll say?
Very much so. Even now, if anything happened and we lost the Panama Canal, we would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica, and between there and Cape Horn.
I've heard it said that there are 7 continents in the world, and one of them has never been seen by a woman, and that's Antarctica. Is that actually true?
Well, if the Palma Peninsula is an island, as far as I know, that's true. No woman's ever stepped foot upon the Antarctic continent, and it's the most peaceful place in the world.
Well, I'm sure that won't last very long. I understand that now that you're working with the Arnold Bread Company in charge of frozen foods. Now, is there any future for frozen foods down these frozen extremities?
Well, I think the human race can be helped by that. This was thought out by Dean Arnold, who's, in my opinion, a great humanitarian. He learned that we went down there after 4 or 5 years and finished a meal that we had left there on the table when we had evacuated Little America. Everything was perfect, including the bread. So he got the idea of this frozen bread, and already he sent some to Europe, and it worked very well over there for some of the starving people. So you can store it down to the Antarctic, and against the lean years, and you wouldn't have any people in the world really starving if you did that.
Yes, in the event of an atomic war...
You'd stay there forever.
Admiral, you speak of the resources of Antarctica. What are they? What are the natural resources there?
Well, we've found enough of coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Well,
that's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We are pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter.
Well,
it was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come when we'll have to go after that stuff down there. Well, you know, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fight over the Antarctic.
And Robert, is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested. Russia is interested tremendously. That I'm sure of. Australia has an expedition down there. The Argentine, the Chile, New Zealand, an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Well, that's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Well, now, the way Admiral Byrd explains Antarctica, it has a lot that mirrors that in which this comes from the Book of Gilgamesh. The fact being that there is all these gems, or all this treasure, if you will, down there. So if the South Pole is different than what we have been told by science, and the Bible tells us that there is a firmament and that there is a covering, is there any other text that has ties to the Bible that also say this? And then in our closing, we will look at the word firmament from the stance of the Hebrew language. And that is the book of Enoch, chapter 18. I saw the winds of the earth, which support the clouds, and I saw the path of angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above. And I went towards the south, and it was burning day and night, and there was 7 mountains of precious stones, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south. I find it interesting that Admiral Byrd actually refers to these mountains with coal and everything. And then it goes on and says, and those towards the east were as colored stone, and one was as pearl, and one of healing stone, and those towards the south, and the red stone. And the middle one reached to heaven, like the throne of the Lord of Sibum, and the top of the throne was as sapphire. In the 18th chapter, we're seeing where Enoch even describes what it looks to be the prison of the fallen angels. But it goes on to say, and like a spirit questioned me, the angel asked, this is a place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison of the stars of heaven and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire, these are the ones which transgressed the command of the Lord from the beginning of the rising, because they did not come out of their proper times. And he was angry with them and bound them until the time of consumption of their sin in the year of mystery. And it refers to end times with these fallen ones. And the fact being that their prison is what looks to be in Antarctica. Could this be the reason why we come running back with our tails between our legs after World War II when we tried to go? Admiral Byrd and his team tried to go there, and they were kicked out, so to speak, from going down there, and we never really tried to allow anyone to go down there, and the biggest treaty of all. Is the earth different? Does the Bible teach that the earth is different than anything we could ever have imagined? And I believe it is. So in closing, I wanted to bring up the word firmament. It is used as a translate of rakia. The word used in the biblical Hebrew is derivative from the root of kui, means to beat or spread out. The process of making a sheet of hammering thin a lump of metal, a spreading. And then you go to the Strong's Hebrew and you just pull up the word, and it's masculine. And then you see what it actually means. And it's an expanse, a covering, if you will, expanse of heaven. It is referred to like a tent dwelling. And, you know, the problem being is that when you see this and you recognize this, you have to say, maybe there's more to the word firmament. And why do Christians run and hide from this term dealing with the way the earth looks? If we take it as a biblical truth, guys, if we take it from a biblical truth, then it puts perspective about aliens, about these beings coming from another planet, coming from another solar system. It puts into perspective that we, humans, are actually in the center of God's that we are literally very important. If we can't get past the firmament with rockets and ships, the reason why I found it very important to me is the fact that the big movement of the flat earth theory, why is it that God is allowing this to take place now? It's because there's truth behind it. And the truth is that evolution, wars, famines, would all come to a screeching halt if everyone stopped and was like, wait a second, there's a firmament? Who put it there? Why is it there? Can we get past it? Should we get past it? Can we sell our boats to Antarctica and go to the edge where the firmament is? Can we go past it and see what these legends and these tales talk of? Another place, just like Admiral Byrd said, another oasis just past it. Is there more truth to this than there is the deception And why is it that Christians are so terrified to look at the Scriptures and let the Scriptures interpret the Scriptures? Why would God, in His infinite wisdom, allow His prophets talk about there being a firmament, talk about there being an expanse, explaining it as sapphire? Why would He allow them to write that down in God's Word if it was a lie? Granted, it's not a salvation issue, but it is a biblical issue. Do we take it as biblical truth, or do we keep believing that these aliens, that this evil horde of demons are coming and abducting people? Or do we call them what they really are? Like I said, a horde of demons. The great deception. To me, all this was affirm my faith even stronger. It made me realize how important I am to Him. How we all are important to Yahweh. And to understand that if the world is this way, that the way in which He created it was to be a home for us, is amazing. As always, I understand that the flat earth theory makes it where we have meaning. We're not insignificant. There's not millions of galaxies out there. There's not, we didn't come from the cesspool and evolve where we are. No, we were created. This environment was to sustain us and shows us His creation. As always, pay attention to your surroundings. You never know what's in the corner. God bless.